Now then, you wouldn't believe the number of gardens that are practically screaming for help, and more often than not, the culprit is a rather unsuspecting mulch. Did you know that using the wrong type of mulch could actually attract termites to your house? Or that it could prevent seeds from germinating, effectively killing your garden before it even starts? Believe it or not, the world of mulch is full of hidden dangers, and picking the wrong one can have some seriously surprising effects on your garden and even your home. So if you want to avoid turning your yard into a barren wasteland, or even worse, inviting a colony of wood-eating insects to move in, stick around. We're about to uncover the secrets of mulch and reveal why choosing wisely is more important than you might think. If you found any value in my content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started. Let's talk about what mulch is and why it matters. Mulch is a protective layer spread over soil, made from organic materials like bark chips, leaves, or compost. It can also be inorganic, like gravel or pebbles. Think of it as a cozy blanket for your garden beds. Mulch helps regulate soil temperature, retain moisture, and suppress weeds. Now let's delve a bit deeper into the fascinating relationship between mulch and soil health. Some mulches, like well-rotted manure or compost, are like a shot of espresso for your soil. They're teeming with beneficial microorganisms that break down organic matter, releasing nutrients in a form that plants can easily absorb. Think of them as nature's own fertilizer factories, working tirelessly beneath the surface to nourish your plants. On the other hand, some mulches can actually deplete the soil of nutrients as they decompose, particularly those made from wood or bark. This is because the microorganisms responsible for breaking down the mulch need nitrogen to do their job, and they'll borrow it from the soil if they have to. Now, this doesn't mean you should avoid wood-based mulches altogether. They have their place, especially for suppressing weeds and retaining moisture. However, it's crucial to be mindful of the potential for nitrogen drawdown. A simple solution is to add a nitrogen-rich fertilizer when applying wood-based mulches to compensate for the borrowed nitrogen. Understanding the properties of different mulches and how they interact with your soil is crucial for creating the optimal growing environment for your plants. Let's be honest, one of the main reasons we gardeners turn to mulch is for its ability to keep those pesky weeds at bay. A thick layer of mulch can act like a barrier, preventing weed seeds from receiving the sunlight they need to germinate. But here's the rub. Not all mulches are created equal when it comes to weed suppression. Some can actually backfire, creating the perfect breeding ground for unwanted plants. Take, for instance, hay or straw. While they may seem like a cost-effective mulching option, they often harbor weed seeds themselves, just waiting to be unleashed upon your unsuspecting garden. Before you know it, you've traded a few weeds for a whole infestation. For effective weed suppression, aim for a depth of at least 2 to 3 inches. But here's a word of caution. Avoid piling mulch directly against the stems of your plants, especially young ones. Remember, the right mulch can be your greatest ally in the war against weeds, but the wrong one can quickly become your worst enemy. Now let's talk about moisture management, another area where mulch can be both a blessing and a curse. As we discussed earlier, mulch is a master at retaining moisture in the soil, reducing evaporation, and keeping those plant roots hydrated. However, like a heavy downpour on a summer's day, too much of a good thing can quickly turn sour. Using a mulch that holds excessive moisture, like cocoa bean hulls or shredded rubber, can create a waterlogged environment that suffocates plant roots and invites all sorts of fungal diseases. On the other hand, some mulches, like gravel or stones, can actually repel water, causing it to run off instead of soaking into the soil. The key is to strike a balance, choosing a mulch that retains moisture without turning your garden beds into a soggy mess. Consider your climate, soil type, and the specific needs of your plants when selecting the right mulch for moisture management. Pests. Those unwelcome visitors who seem to appear out of thin air, wreaking havoc on our beloved gardens. Now, while mulch itself doesn't necessarily attract pests, certain types can inadvertently create inviting habitats for these pesky critters. Take, for instance, wood chips. Now, don't get me wrong, wood chips can be a fantastic mulch option, but they can also become a haven for termites, especially if they're not properly aged or if they're piled up against the foundation of your house. Then there are slugs and snails. These slimy characters love nothing more than a damp, dark environment to hide out in during the day, emerging at night to munch their way through your precious plants. And what better place to create such a haven than beneath a thick layer of mulch, especially if it's kept excessively moist. First and foremost, choose your mulch wisely. Avoid using fresh wood chips or bark, as these are particularly attractive to termites. Opt for aged wood chips or bark, which are less appealing to these wood-munching pests. Regularly inspect your mulch for signs of pest activity and take action immediately if you spot any unwanted visitors. Now, while the primary function of mulch is undoubtedly practical, let's not forget about the aesthetic appeal of our gardens. After all, a garden should be a feast for the eyes as well as the soul. Mulch comes in a wide array of colors and textures, offering endless possibilities for enhancing the visual appeal of your garden beds. However, it's important to choose a mulch that complements your garden's overall design and doesn't clash with the colors or textures of your plants. Avoid using brightly colored dyed mulches, as these can look unnatural and out of place in a natural setting, and be mindful of the texture of your mulch. Practical considerations should also factor into your choice of mulch. For instance, if you have a sloping garden, a lightweight mulch, like pine straw or shredded leaves, might wash away easily during heavy rainfall. In such cases, a heavier mulch, like bark chips or gravel, would be a more practical choice. In our quest for the perfect mulch, it's becoming increasingly important to consider the environmental impact of our choices. After all, as gardeners, we have a responsibility to nurture and protect the very environment that sustains our beloved plants. Firstly, where does your mulch come from? Many commercially available mulches are made from byproducts of the timber industry, such as bark chips and wood chips. While this can be a good way to utilize waste materials, it's important to ensure that the timber has been sourced sustainably from well-managed forests. Secondly, consider the transportation distance of your mulch. Transporting mulch over long distances generates greenhouse gases, contributing to climate change. Whenever possible, choose locally sourced mulches to reduce your carbon footprint. Thirdly, think about the longevity of your mulch. Some mulches, like gravel or stone, are essentially permanent, while others, like bark chips or compost, decompose over time, enriching the soil as they do so. Finally, be mindful of the potential for mulch to introduce invasive species into your garden. By choosing our mulches carefully, we can minimize our ecological footprint and create gardens that are both beautiful and sustainable. Now, I know this may all seem a bit overwhelming, but choosing the right mulch for your garden doesn't have to be a daunting task. It's a bit like choosing the right hat, you see. You wouldn't wear a woolly bobble hat on a scorching summer's day, nor would you wear a straw hat in the middle of winter. It's all about finding the right fit for the occasion. So, let's break down the process of selecting the perfect mulch for your needs. Firstly, consider your climate. If you live in a hot, dry climate, you'll need a mulch that's good at retaining moisture, such as bark chips, shredded leaves, or compost. If you live in a more humid climate, you might want to choose a mulch that allows for better air circulation, like pine straw or shredded cedar bark. Secondly, think about your soil type. If you have heavy clay soil, a mulch that improves drainage, such as bark chips or pine straw, would be beneficial. If you have sandy soil, a mulch that helps to retain moisture, like shredded leaves or compost, would be a better choice. Thirdly, consider the specific needs of your plants. Some plants, like acid-loving blueberries and rhododendrons, prefer a more acidic mulch, such as pine needles or oak leaves. Other plants, like roses, prefer a well-drained mulch that doesn't hold excessive moisture. The most important thing is to choose a mulch that you're comfortable with, and that meets the specific needs of your garden. Well, there you have it, the ins and outs of mulch, and why getting it right is crucial for a thriving garden. If this video saved you from even one landscaping disaster, we've done our job. The Don't Do This guide is all about preventing mistakes before they happen. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Don't Do This guide for more tips on avoiding life's little disasters. And don't forget to share this video with your fellow gardeners. Let's spread the word about the importance of choosing the right mulch.